we are the 100 Writing Days of Summer, and this is our last summer reading. And we have 7 readers tonight, each doing between 7 and 8.5 minutes. I'm giving them a little stern warning, 8.5 minutes of something that they're working on. And our group of writers is really diverse. We come from all sorts of backgrounds and abilities and interests. We have fantasy, memoir, an historical novel of New York. We have a memoir from sort of Maine and Westchester and maybe Connecticut. I can't quite remember all the places, Susie. Nancy, I don't remember what you're writing, right? What you're reading from tonight, but it's a memoir, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, and Martha writes about tarot and tarot readings, and so we have a lot of different kinds of people reading from all sorts of things. I myself am going to actually sing you a song, so I will give you fair warning if you want to just get off right before I try singing. if you want to detach before you're that's imposed upon you, since I am the last speaker. But I have a song in my book that like a lot of stuff revolves around, so it's never actually sung in a book because we don't have AI yet. But it has a tune in my head, so you'll probably be the only people who will ever actually hear the tune. Anyway, all right, so everybody should be, I would really like to welcome you all and thank you for coming and supporting a writer, and I hope to really be entertaining tonight. So not just me, I mean our readers, obviously. We have worked hard this summer, and everybody should just give our writers a round of applause before we even get started. So let me just do that. You can do this if you're muted. And thank you very much. Okay, we're going to start with Martha Rand, and I'm just going to tell you a little bit about her. I'm going to mute everybody. Martha will unmute herself, and then she can begin, okay? But first I'm going to read her bio, and then I will mute everybody, and Martha will have to unmute herself. So here we go. Martha is reading Destiny Deferred. She began working with tarot and astrology in her early teens. She learned originally through her family, which combined Celtic, English, Eastern European, Jewish, and deep American roots. Her flash fiction has been anthropologized, and she has written professional pieces for psychology and astrology publications. As a psychotherapist and a coach, her work is both trauma-informed and healing-centered. So let's go back to Martha. I'm muting everybody. Martha, you unmute yourself, and we look forward to hearing Destiny Deferred.
Okay. Justine and Eleni sat at the kitchen table. Floral cafe curtains printed with big red cabbage roses and yellow feathered birds hung in the kitchen window. Justine looked up from the papers in front of her. Eleni was still focused, her pencil marking the astrology chart she was learning on, her eyes going back and forth to the ephemeris. She was checking the planet placements, what sign each planet was in, and whether they were retrograde or direct. Eleni was 14, and she had never done a chart before. Her Aunt Gemma had insisted that she look at the ephemeris, the book that, according to her aunt, ship's navigators used to tell where they were in the sea. Eleni highly doubted that ship's captains were looking at this book or up in the sky to navigate. She felt quite certain that everything must be computerized and that nobody was looking at the stars to figure out how to get across the ocean. But she thought she could also be wrong. She had never traveled, and her aunt had been to many places. Her aunt managed her husband and her son's music career. Her uncle would be coming back to New Jersey next week to reconnect with his sons and his wife. He was being featured at Carnegie Hall, playing his music as a soloist with a larger orchestra. Justine's brothers in the backyard had taken a break from rehearsing. They'd be playing on Monday, Labor Day, at the local park like they did most years. Justine gazed out the window and watched as a tall young man in boots came up the driveway. Her brothers invited him to sit down at the plastic patio table. Who would wear boots on a hot summer day? Justine wondered to herself. The boy had that Jersey look, long curly hair, blonde summer streaks, and cowboy boots. Probably drove a red pickup, Justine thought. She was 16. She knew, objectively speaking, all her friends would consider him hot. Justine had heard her brothers rehearse so often she could pick out their imperfections. The unexpected repeats gave away their flaws. Her father had trained them not to stop. He, of course, knew when they had stumbled, but when he gave them instructions, it was always to just keep going and figure it out. As long as you keep going, the audience will never know it's a stumble, he'd say. In fact, if you make a mistake, do it 2 more times. The audience will think it's meant to be like that. Mommy, the boys aren't playing. Can I bring them some lemonade or something? All this calculating is making me want to get up and move. Justine was out of her seat and had draped her lean body across the kitchen island. Her aunt, Mariella, in whose kitchen they were, held up a finger indicating just a sec. She took a picture of mint lemonade from the fridge and set that and some plastic cups on a tray. Here you go, she said, handing the tray to Justine and opening the back door for her. Mariella went back to cooking and jumped back into the conversation she was having with Justine's mom, her sister Gemma, about the plans for the weekend. They were elated that their oldest sister Orla had some tarot reading gigs for holiday parties, and they didn't have to trudge in from Jersey to her storefront on Sheridan Square in the village. On the patio, Justine heard the boys talking. They weren't speaking English. Justine took a moment to look at the group. Her 2 oldest brothers were at the table discussing an arrangement. The 3 others were farther back, tuning and balancing speakers. The one new boy was at the table, silently watching everything. A large envelope was on the table. She knew he must have brought it. She set the tray on the table and leaned toward the new boy. She asked, "You speak the language?" Jono took a look at this tall, dark-haired girl and grinned. "No, I don't know what they're saying." "Guys," Justine stood up straight. She stood silently, shifting the weight on her feet, making her hips move side to side. She walked around the table. Justine leaned down to get in Corin's face. It was the only way to get her oldest brother's attention. "What is it you want, Justine?" he acknowledged her. She was 16 and he was 34, the oldest brother. He'd often been in charge of taking care of her, and as the oldest, he was often in charge of all of them, and definitely in charge of the band when her dad was away. "Well, I did bring you some lemonade. I'd like a thank you, my beautiful, incredible, thoughtful sister," she teased. "Okay, thank you," he said, and went back to adding some notes and chords on the manuscript. "What about the rest?" She looked peeved. "The rest of what?" "The beautiful, incredible, thoughtful sister part." She tossed back her long, dark hair. She could sense the newcomer's eyes on her. She could tell Corin was about to stand up, and she started hopping back and forth and raised her hands in light fists like she was getting ready to fight. "I'll take you with one hand," he came back at her. "You try it," she dared him. She was aware that the new guy's eyes were glued to her. She liked when that happened. Especially she liked it when she was on stage, dancing with the family, playing tambourine. She was rarely the center of attention on the stage. She mostly had to stand by the side and move with the rhythm. There was always one piece where she'd belly dance across the stage and be in the spotlight. That had taken a lot of coaxing from her dad originally, but now she liked performing and she could take her time in a relaxed way. She could see the audience liked it too. It didn't make her nervous anymore. The kind of stage fright she had when she was younger had left her with a sense of fearless audacity. That and her brother's constant teasing, they never passed up a chance to tease her, had toughened her. Besides, you're all being rude. What the hell? Corin responded. You're speaking in a language your guest does not understand. By the way, she turned toward him. I'm Justine. What's your name? Jono, he said as he started to stand. Look how polite he is, standing up to talk to a woman. Justine gave her brother a look of disdain. Little girl, her brother called her affectionately, emphasizing the fact that according to him, she was not a woman yet. Get back inside with your cousin. We have things to talk about. You have things to talk about. Keep talking, she mocked as she crossed the patio and opened the back door. The boys had turned back to their conversation. She'd been effective. They were talking in English. She gave Jono a wink as she went into the kitchen. Eleni was still focused on the numbers and the chart in front of her. I think I have every part of it done. Eleni looked up triumphantly. Justine glanced over Eleni's shoulder as she walked around the table to her place. Mom, come check Eleni's work, Justine called as she walked toward the dining room. The end.
Thank you very much. That is great. That was wonderful. Now, with apologies to Martha, I will say that one thing we like to do in this group is put things in the chat that you particularly like. Some of us who've been here for a few of them we're doing that anyway, but writers know what's clunky, especially when they read it out loud. What they don't know is what's brilliant. They're sort of blind to it. So help all of these writers out by cribbing and quoting the stuff that really sticks with you, that really makes a difference when you're hearing it. Love the flirt scene, says Michael. Yeah, it was great. And her main character is Eleni, which is why it's Destiny Deferred. That's the first time she met Jono, who's the main male character. So that was great. Thank you so much. Anybody else have a comment or question for Martha before we move on? Very touching. So lovely. Okay, we're going to move on. Thank you, Martha. Now we have our friend Dean Landsman reading Death Falls from the Sky. And Dean says that there was a story idea kicking around, saved on every computer storage medium since 1980. It was looked at sometimes as the storage media changed. Does anybody remember zip drives? And has grown ever so little over time. But just before the pandemic hit, I took a look and jumped into it head first. What began as a short little funny story has since morphed into a 3-generation historical novel. Working with Julia has given me focus on my writing and an expansive look at being a writer. An early career in radio as a DJ led to running a broadcast consulting firm, then owning a radio station, and later he worked at Telecom in online development, digital strategy, personal data, and online identity management and security. So Dean is reading a piece called Death Falls from the Sky, and as he said, it's from a 3-generation historical novel. Okay, so Dean, I'm going to right now mute all. Yes, and then you have to unmute yourself. Ready? And as I said, please put in the chat as we go things that you really like, things that stick with you, that for Dean's edification.
Just to point out that it is a historical novel. covers 3 generations. This is of the 3rd generation, and it takes place in June of 1973. For perspective. It was 3 months after the plane crash. Manny had been observing what struck Janet, Amy, and Carl as radio silence since getting the news. Over a lunch at the Oyster Bar in Grand Central Station, they spoke about it. They had never experienced him this way. Of course, none of them had ever lost a parent, much less both parents at once. Manny wasn't there, but he dominated the conversation. Janet decided she should take action of some sort. She decided it was up to her to do something. The next Saturday around noon, Janet gave Manny a call. She announced she was coming over shortly for a visit, like it or not. She hadn't seen him or Clark Kent in too long. She didn't mention the deaths of Mendel and Rachel, nor did she ask how he was holding up. Manny, sounding sullen, said, "Okay, what time?" "This afternoon," she replied. "I'll see you then. Should I bring anything? You have potato chips, dip, anything like that?" Manny answered, "No, he hasn't been out much, just minimal grocery shopping and getting the Sunday papers and his Sunday bagels by the subway station." "No meals at the diner or any of the other restaurants on Montague Street?" "No, just haven't felt like it." "You're still in mourning?" "Yes, if you want to call it that." "Manny, I call it mourning if you don't have chips and dip, cashews and nachos stacked for me in your apartment. I'll bring some with me." Manny agreed, said fine. They ended the call. Janet arrived and let herself in. Wagging his tail at lightning speed, Clark Kent was thrilled to see her. She stopped for a few minutes in the kitchen and called out to Manny, "I'm here." He replied, "I'm in the living room. Come on in." She sees him. He's dressed in sweatpants and a New Paltz t-shirt, unshaven. He almost looks like a bum, Janet thought. A bum in a nice apartment. He had the TV on, a Mets game. He had muted the sound. He was watching the game in silence. "I haven't seen you in so long." "Too long. I miss you." He gave a slight nod of acknowledgement. "Manny, you've been like a hermit since the crash. Tell me how you feel. Should I be worried about you?" Manny had not said anything to anyone about that. He'd had thoughts, but never spoken a word. As he began to answer Janet's question, he avoided that hermit part. Janet sat quietly and listened. This was out of character, out of the usual back and forth repartee. She heard him out. He misses and mourns his mother, Rachel. For Mendel, he knows not how he feels. It's hard to miss someone you felt less close to by the day, the month, the year. When I'd come home from New Paltz, Rachel was happy to see me, as though I'd been away for years on some mission. Mendel would come home from work and barely acknowledge me, same as ever. Grandpa Herschel wasn't that way. He always showed a sense of joy, of enthusiasm, of caring to see me. Grandma Freda too, but in a much more subdued way. Janet remained still. Intuition in her years of friendship with Manny told her something more was coming, something bigger. If you go to other people's homes, yours for one, your grandparents, parents, aunts and uncles, it was different. That there was affection, Janet. Fathers and uncles who openly loved their sons and daughters, openly. Some of the men would sit on a couch with an arm around their wife or daughter, even of a son. Mendel never did that with Rachel or me. I didn't come to realize or recognize it until high school, when I started dating. From watching movies, too. How? I realized that other friends' families were different from mine. Different, Janet. I wasn't watching a movie in real life. I was living a life. Those scenes in movies weren't so unreal. Nobody spoke about those parts as unrealistic. Other plots and parts of scenes, sure, we talk about those. But not normal displays, not even displays, just natural, normal motions of affection, being close. They made me think. It was my family that was unrealistic. Different. I didn't want to be different, but I didn't have a choice. All their years of friendship, of closeness, Janet thought. She had never heard anything like this from Manny. Even the way they died is different. A plane crash. Death fell from the sky. It's hard to process this. A plane crashes. It burns so badly it leaves no remains. It's like they vanished. They vanished from my life, my different life. People talk about grief, how to grieve. I don't know how to grieve them. Manny stopped talking. He glanced over to the Met game and back at Janet. The whole time, Clark Kent sat quietly watching Manny speak, his head turning back and forth when Janet spoke and when Manny replied. It was that dog's sense of emotion, a dog's intuition about their master. Janet, if you died in a plane crash, I'd be more broken up than I am now over my parents. You and I have always had a normal friendship since we were little kids. Amy, too. Maybe that's why I didn't go insane. Outside of my house, life was more normal. or as normal as it could be coming from such an abnormal place. Then he stopped again. He looked down, unable to make eye contact with Janet. I don't know if you or anyone else saw it. I never asked. I never wanted to know. I was scared to know. I felt so different. Different, Janet. Different. Janet had begun to cry. Manny was confused by that. Why are you crying? Because I never knew this, Manny. Manny, this is horrible. So sad. And you never said a word to me about it. No, I was ashamed. I couldn't let on how different I was. I was scared. Even of me and Damon? She thought for a second and decided not to say how her mother would call Amy, Manny, and her the Brooklyn version of the Three Musketeers, always up to something. It was her training as a lawyer to take a breath and think. She was the bank's litigator, staying a step ahead, knowing the answer before asking the question, knowing how any of her words might be taken. That was paramount. Especially you and Amy, my best friends. Part of my being different. A little boy with two girl best friends, like that all the way through college. All the times, guys asking me if I'd been fucking you or Amy or both of you, even that made me different. They couldn't get that we were just friends. Janet let out a little laugh. If it makes you feel any better, same as you, Amy and I were always asked how you were in bed, as if it were a given one or both of us had slept with you. We would laugh it off. Amy would give that wicked smile of hers and tell them to find out on their own. She was like a cheerleader for you. You didn't tell them I was great? Janet realized the topic had changed. The room had cooled down. I couldn't tell them what I didn't know. That would have been untruthful. Are you still in touch with any of them? Any of them in Brooklyn or Manhattan? Should I be hopeful? Aren't you the conniving Romeo? No, I lost touch with most of the New Paltz crowd when I went off to law school. What about that song on the Cream album? If it wasn't for bad luck, I wouldn't have no luck at all. Oh, you certainly do have luck, mister, right now, today, right here. What do you mean? I'll tell you, Mr. Lucky Man. I brought you ground coffee from that place you love on the Upper West Side and Junior's cheesecake, pineapple cheesecake for you, my one and only crony on Pineapple Street. You did? Where is it? An advantage of having a key to your apartment is being able to bring things in here and get them to the fridge before you can see them. For all you know, I might stash things in your freezer. They're always empty freezer. That, Janet, would be a different kind of different. Let's go look. Did you put up coffee too? He said as he headed toward the kitchen. No, you had some there in the pot. I checked. Yeah, that's garbage coffee. We can spill that out and brew the good stuff you brought. Haven't had any in weeks. Thanks. Janet wondered if she'd take them out to dinner, she thought. Would that be too much? Where would they go? She was in her usual overalls. He's in that ratty t-shirt and sweatpants. Easy enough for him to change. He lives here. But me? Maybe I look too casual. The diner might be the only choice, but there'd be lots of locals there. They'd offer Manny their condolences. Just what we should avoid. Same with the Montague Street Chinese restaurant. Ooh, Chinese. Dressed this way, both of us would go to that disgusting downstairs place he goes in Chinatown. Instead of taking the subway, I should call the car service. Make it easy. She decided to wait to have coffee and cheesecake, see how the afternoon went. She thought, maybe I'll ask him to put on that Cream album. No, that'll remind me of the Depression. He's got that VCR. I should ask him to put on a movie. He knows I love to watch a movie with Clark Kent in my lap. Me on one end of his couch, him on the other, like we always do. Yes, that's what I'll do when we finish the coffee and cheesecake. Knowing Manny to be ultra fastidious about his kitchen, she decided to tell him she wanted to look at his VHS movie tapes collection while he cleaned up the table. That would work, she thought. That would keep us until time for dinner. For sure he doesn't have dinner plans. He clearly hasn't had any plans for a while. It worked. Clark Kent jumped onto her lap. Manny put the tape into the VCR. She asked him to choose between Cat Ballou with Lee Marvin and the It Chris File with Michael Caine. Falling back into their usual Saturday night mutual dateless routine, she said, "Don't tell me, surprise me." Manny gave her a suspicious look. "Don't we do this on a Saturday night, not a Saturday afternoon?" "Blame it on the cheesecake," she said. "It's late afternoon." "That's close enough. And look at Clark Kent, already on my lap as usual. Get over to your side of the sofa with the remote and start it. Clark Kent and I want to see which one you picked."
Okay, thanks for that. That was lovely. Anybody have questions for Dean or anything you want to share? I'm gonna go to
It was great. I think I felt like he pulled us right in. We were all right there with you, Dean.
Mm-hmm. And I love the dog named Clark Kent. Mm-hmm. And you could feel their closeness. I felt you could really feel how close those two are. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Dean.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we're going to hear from Michael Shaika, and he's reading a segment called Arrival. And Michael says, I am a sentient artist expressing self as a novelist dedicated to beauty and truths. Experienced in cottage industry luxury fashion, I have mastered the art of hand painting silk yardage. My writing subject matter consists of crafting as a lifestyle and mentally layered with deepening human themes. This summer, I felt rewarded to take part in Julia Roberts' 100 Writing Days of Summer. I am completing a final revision of my manuscript and hope to submit a series of query letters to prospective agents this fall. Very exciting to hear that, Michael, that you're getting that close. So he's reading to us from Arrival. And again, let's tell Michael what sentences and thoughts and images resonate with us. Michael, hold on while I mute everybody, and then you unmute yourself. Okay, you go.
Okay, I'm reading chapter 58, towards the end of the book of Abra's Way. Earth Goddess of Starseed is the name of the novel. It's when the heroine basically arrives to her destination, or she's approaching it. This beginning of this chapter intertwines two narrators' voice. Most of the novel is all with the Lynx narrating, but every once in a while, Mother Nature or the universe narrates. And this is mostly Mother Nature, but it intertwines in the same chapter, the voice of the Lynx. And so to show that, I'm going to use an accent, my best British accent, Margaret Thatcher kind of, to be Mother Nature. All right, chapter 58, Arrival. Upon a cold and barren landscape of a snow-covered marsh, a maiden climbs atop a woolly mammoth and ushers it south. A blazing sun rises heavy before heavy storm clouds. Slung over the maiden's shoulder is a satchel containing an immature red fox. At the mammoth's feet prance two lynxes, one a copper-tone Iberian lynx, the second a silver and beige Eurasian lynx. The mammoth drags several sacks behind it. They are stuffed to capacity and attached by a long rope. As the sun enters a cloud bank, snow flurries begin. A pink dawn fades to blue. The first glimpse of coral sunrise beams up. A soft flurry of snow begins to accumulate on the ice. From several directions, I smell trailing spirals of burning wood. Focusing my night vision far up ahead, I see upon the summit of a hill a monumental stone structure. Scanning the facade of the compound, I ask Okerbaum, the sanctuary. He nods, then gurgles out imagery of snow leopards, humans, and mules. Activity at the doorsteps of the sanctuary compound share faint voices carried on the wind, similar to Abra's and Nikki's. Heading directly in that direction, Mashka shuffles forward. Abra, riding atop her, sways to every step. Okerbaum and I escort them onwards on either side. Scurrying aside the iceway are muskrats. They enter and exit dens of pitch-covered sticks ascending the earth beneath. At the opening of a waterhole, an otter appears with a perch in its jaws. Across foggy laced ice, it bounces onto a bed of crisp white snow where it stops to eat. Further upland, a lad mounts a steed. Traveling west through snowdrifts and frozen shrubbery, the stallion arrives at the edge of the marsh. The Frisian soars as it jumps over a stone wall. Holding tight, the lad crouches low upon the horse's frame. Clipping along, knees raised high to its chest, the stallion glides between connecting meadows, all pristinized under the fresh white snowfall. Above, a snowy owl wisps, unseen, over the horse and rider. Tipping its wingspan south, the raptor passes the muskrats, otter, and young boy Juice. It soars towards a large structure of stone situated upon a rise. Circulating the structure twice, the owl observes a group of maidens exiting through the high carved wooden doors. chiding each other in laughter. The kind folk carry empty baskets, pails, and sacks. After hitching up several sleds to mules, they walk side by side in pairs. Greta, you and Katrin gather berries. Hesper and Odessa collect cattails. I will collect firewood. Can't I gather firewood too? I always have to pick berries, pleads the youngest Gritania, removing her moss green velvet cape to the warmth of the winter sun. She pleads, please. Let me gather the berries then, whispering to Anadita, Hesper suggests. She just wants to be with you, Anadita. All right. Considering Greta, Annie states, then get a top and drag more pine boughs with it. Reading the list Z holds, Anadita remarks, we'll need cedar, hemlock, and cypress, swaying their finger, and plenty of choke cherries. As Anadita and Gritania hitch the sled up to a waiting donkey, the lass, dressed in red, Katrinica, tries leading it forwards, uttering, Donkey Trot doesn't seem to want to move today. Greta offers her hand with an apple, giggling, Here, Dookie, as she coaxes them forward. Let us bring her along Donkey Trella too, calls Primissa, as she comes running up out of the structure's entrance, carrying a bucket of apples. She can lug all the ice water back. You gather her and hitch her up then, Anadita demands. It's already done. From the center of the building comes a donkey, pulling a wooden sled with more buckets on it. Wait, the snow leopards, Britannia shouts. We shan't leave without them. Using forefinger and pinky finger, Anadita ushers a dog whistle. Rushes inside, then returns wearing a scarlet cashmere cape over her plain work garb. From the mound on the hill, 3 snow leopards come bounding up the inclined path to the stream. As they reach the maidens, they chase each other in play, clicking growls, nipping, flipping tails, and twist jumping. What's gotten into them today? Asks Cerise, shading her eyes with the hood of purple, red, gold-trimmed robe from the glare of the sun on snow. They're so crazy and excited, declares Odessa. It's the weather. A storm is brewing, Hesper utters. As the group of sun-dry maidens forge across the winter's landscape, each parcel is followed by a pair of snow leopards. The party trudging through heavy snow approaches the expanse of frozen stream. Their voices join in unison in both rhythm and melodic harmony. Pirouetting its wings mid-air, the snow owl veers west over a woodlot and settles on a high branch of white pine. Below, within a small clearing, a eunuch practices Tai Chi, barefoot in the snow. At the northern edge of the clearing, a stag leads its parcel in the opposite direction, hindquarters bouncing into the brush. Taking flight again, in the direction of the immense structure of stone, the owl glides over an open courtyard and descends into the postern of a lower-level mezzanine. Breaking speed by cutting its wings, the snow owl arrives into a darkened countermine gallery. Through a break of storm clouds, a beam of sunlight shoots directly into the embrasure of the mezzanine. The beam enlightens a life-size stone wall relief, detailing a pair of winged sphinx and a woolly mammoth, accompanying a young feminine divine. Into the beam of sunlight, a soothsayer walks, studying the relief as he wobbles forward. In a whoosh, the owl lands on her shoulder. In unison, as a trumpeted call of the woolly mammoth breaks the silence. Startled, the crone drops a vessel of clay she carries. Hitting marble tile, the jar shatters. Unwavered by the crash, the crone watches as the band of sun passes over the entire wall relief of the postern. Pivoting her step, she saunters into the sunken shadows of the lower level mezzanine, her head held high.
Okay, I don't think I'm alone in saying I love that, the voices. It was really good. Oh, yes, saunters into the sunken shadows. Yes, so much good description. Yeah. And it was more animated and differentiated, I think, just by the voices. It was lovely. Anybody have a question or something you'd like to say to Michael before we move on? Thank you, Michael. That was great. Yeah, fanciful and delightful. A lot of good comments, Michael. You don't want to miss them. Okay. Thank you. We're going to move on. And I think we have Heidi next. We do. And Heidi is reading Rewiring. And Heidi says, I'm an artist, creative flow facilitator, and somatic instructor who has moved from paralyzing fear of the blank page to writing a book. Resuscitate, coming back to life through connected play, will be part illustrated memoir, part playbook, celebrating creative expression as a healing and transformative tool accessible to everyone. I began 100 writing days a summer, committed to showing up each day, and she really did, with a playful approach and enjoy writing in community. I love challenging my creativity chops by incorporating Julia's daily prompts in my memoir. I hope to test the waters for my memoir writing in these public reading sessions, and I believe you will have that opportunity momentarily. So we're hearing from Heidi, and she's reading Rewiring. Heidi, when I quit talking, I will mute everybody, and then you unmute yourself. We're hearing from Heidi Hunter, Rewiring.
Oops, I have to get my page back. I'm lying on my back, across the foot of my single bed, wrapped in a peach and white striped towel. I'm shaking, but not from cold. Beyond my feet, the door to my room is half open, and I can hear them in their bedroom. Then there's silence. Did she die? I'm terrified that I electrocuted my mum. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have grabbed that bar. They told me not to touch the bar, and I did. I recall the what, but the why has been sucked down the drain. A moving picture memory starts with 4-year-old me in the upstairs bathroom. The gray chair from the movie star mirror at the vanity was waiting for me at the sink. Step up. I can't lift you all the way. You have to help me. My mother's voice sounded like a dry sponge. Just climb up. My right foot found the sink's cold edge, and my left hand reached for the metal towel rack to hoist myself up. Instantly, a screaming surge coursed through me, and my mother jerked me away. My father's voice sounded far off. Thanks heaven you weren't in the water. I remember wondering why, and I heard the word wiring. I noticed that my dad said thanks heaven. English was his second language. He closed and opened the lights, said manipulate instead of manipulate, and even though he knew it was whip and chill, he called his favorite dessert Jack and Jill. He loved telling the story of the time he was accused of asking a young woman to disrobe for a photograph. Yes, I said, show me your nipples. Oh, did I get mixed up? Oh, it's my English. I meant show me your dimples. Dimples, not nipples. A master at manipulation. He always had a get out of jail free card up his sleeve. I had no idea what just had happened and why there was heaven thanking going on. My head was detached from the world, but my mother reattached it. You're okay. Just don't touch that bar. I clenched my baby teeth and bit back at the aftershock in my mouth. To my left, my father was a dark silhouette backlit by the sunny window. He was standing between the full-length mirrors on facing walls. Mirror upon mirror, I glimpsed a million hymns disappearing into the curved hall to infinity. He was holding something. Let's get this over with. Her voice was Lifebuoy soap. Hold the wall, not the bar. Not the bar, not bar, not bar, not bar. The mantra in my head coaxed me into the sink. The water was warm, but soon a stinky washcloth was scrubbing my face. With my mother's left hand cupped under my skull, I held my breath squished between her hand and the cloth. Wiggling out of the suffocating sandwich, I slipped, lost my balance, and grabbed the bar to catch myself. I was glued again. But now I was in the water, and my mother was attached to me. We were conjoined by electric current. My father released us with the wooden stick that propped the window open. Thanks heaven. How did he think so fast? How did he know how to save us? Why was he even there? How long were we glued together with that relentless current bonding us? However terrifying this incident, what has haunted me my entire life was that my father was there at the ready with the window stick. He always orchestrated the day so he could save it. I wonder if he had done just that. I was never able to write this memory until this year, 6 decades later. I noticed myself slowly rocking as I conducted my fluid truth onto the page. I gave voice to the physical sensations I felt at the time, then allowed them to move through and out of my body. Once I was done, I continued in my journal and wrote these words. I'm safe in my body now. That happened long, long ago. My left shoulder, my left ear feels wooden right now. I slow my breath, feel the map of my body. My right side is water, my left wood. I can float and become driftwood to allow this memory to move through on the safe current of my breath. I can soften and flow and tell my truth without returning to the scene of the accident. My 4-year-old deserves to tell her secret story. My parents were electricity together. Polar opposites, the charge of hate and love zapped through their lives. I was their silent conductor. Later, my mother admitted to my therapist that yes, this happened exactly as I described it, then added, it actually happened a few times. This surprised me. In my mind, it only happened once. She blamed old wiring, old house, and a metal towel rack eventually replaced with wood. Soon after that, I developed an unshakable aversion to toothbrushing. I'd hold my breath and my left hand would cling to my chest for dear life during this daily ordeal. I never connected my lifetime toothbrushing anxiety with this trauma until just a little while ago. One morning, an idea squeezed out of the toothpaste tube. What if I tried to brush my teeth with my non-dominant hand? I entertained the idea like an experiment. It was worth a try. Clumsy and frustrated, but with invincible commitment, I began. It was as if my body was showing me how to release the trauma. It actually became a game I looked forward to. A gray-haired woman smiled at me in the mirror. It wasn't my mother. My father was nowhere to be seen. It was me looking back, saying, oh my God, you're onto something. This is exactly what you need to do. Keep going. My left hand felt 4 years old, barely able to hold the toothbrush. My right hand was patient and told the left something I never heard growing up. You can do it. Take your time. Instantly, I felt safe. It felt safe to become curious. The right mimed the action and the left followed along. There was no place for anxiety because the space was filled with something beautifully connected and new. I was both Pinocchio and Geppetto. The right was loving and allowing, and unlike my mother, had all the time in the world. Embodying the wisdom of my right, my left showed me a somatic path to healing. It's been over a year of brushing my teeth with my non-dominant hand. I've not rewritten history, but I've set my body free from habitually and subconsciously connecting the dots back to that initial trauma. These waters of my childhood are both muddy and clear. By allowing myself time and space to settle, the cloudy silt sinks to the bottom and clarity greets me. I am in awe at how curiosity and play became the answer to move through this. Why did my father take so long to fix that rack? Why was he at the ready with the stick? Why was I left alone and not taken to a doctor? It no longer matters. That wooden stick didn't save me. Curiosity, play, and neuroplasticity did. I've become my own lightning rod. Given the chance, our brains have the miraculous power to rewire and create new synapses. I believe it is possible to craft safe and creative tools to move from a dark detention hall to a playground of healing.
Thank you very much, Heidi, and thanks for sharing that. Anybody have a question or a thought they'd like to share with Heidi before we move on? Feel free. I don't mean to say before we move on like you can't. Heidi, there's great commentary in the in the comments. I don't want you to miss that. Okay, thank you. That was really powerful and a lovely share. Really excellent. Yeah, Nancy Capo saying excellent. Thank you, Heidi. Deep and thoughtful. Don't miss the nice comments. Okay. Well, we've heard 4 really great readings so far. And we're going on now with Nancy Hilpert, called Pilgrims in Icy, a travel memoir. Nancy is a career coach and mindfulness teacher who writes poetry, prose, and memoir. She lives in Honolulu with her cat tribe. Oh, you must have more than one cat. And human partner in cat service. She is on Instagram as Wild Grace, WYLD, Wild Grace. Everybody's connections, like if you want to follow them on social, are all on the thank you page that you would have gotten as soon as you registered. So if you want to go back and reach out to somebody and say something on social media, feel free to. We would all appreciate that, I'm sure. Okay, so we're hearing from our friend Nancy. And Nancy, I'm going to mute everybody, including myself, and then you have to unmute yourself. Are you ready to go?
I am.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
We all can.
Awesome. Thank you everyone. I am working on a sort of a travel memoir of a year I spent in Japan in the mid 80s when I was a college student. My first basically trip out of the country, if you don't count Canada, having grown up on the mainland. So this is just a snippet of, there's multiple stories about how that went, of my mom visiting me 6 weeks after I had arrived. And we did this very complicated trip, and this is one little snippet from it. It's, I'm hoping that there's some humor in it. That's intended to be sort of a humorous memoir. For the grand finale, I'd made reservations for one night at a well-known and expensive ryokan, a traditional Japanese inn that sat above the village of Toba at the top of a high ridge at the end of a long, winding road. We rode a chartered cab arranged by our guide and watched the steep cliffs cutting the edge of the road, where below all ocean, white tips of wake roiled, breaking up over the rocky shoreline as we rose higher and higher. Finally, we arrived at the top and checked in for the evening, settled in, changing into the cotton yukata and suripa, the guest kimono and slippers provided by the inn. We were hungry after a long day of sightseeing and traveling and waited impatiently for dinner to be served in our private tatami matted room. We laid around, stretched out on our backs, our obies loose, resting, smelling the sweet dried grass of the mats. After days of nonstop touring, it felt divine to do nothing. When they came in with the food, they made a big procession of it. 3 or 4 servers, all in their matching yukata and headbands, guided us with white gloved hands over the tatami through soji screen doors to the room next door, which were opened with a flourish to reveal a table fully set and covered with dishes of various shapes and sizes. One man took Mom's elbow gently and guided her across the tatami and down to the low table, showing how underneath a cavity in the floor created space for our legs. They pulled from the cupboard cushions to sit on. No chairs, of course, but little seat backs that we could prop behind us for support. The head server was proudly pointing to and describing what took 2 of the men to carry, bowing lowly as they placed in the center a large wooden block that bore a full-sized, seemingly intact fresh fish resting upright, its eyes bright and scales flashing as though it could swim away any moment. Their facial and verbal and physical expressions told us this was something very special. It certainly was an impressive feast, and the fish, I'd never seen anything like it. Subarashi! It's a work of art, I agreed, clapping and bowing. Dozo, they all clasped their hands together at their chest, bowing in unison, and invited us to eat. I thanked them with a domo and the universal blessing before dining, itadakimasu, and dug in with my ohashi, ready to feast. I tried some of the sashimi first, seeing that the pieces easily turned to my touch. I was in heaven. I'd never tasted anything so fresh. Oi, she, doesn't it? Seeing this, Mom declared with a sour look on her face, "Wait, is that fish raw?" Charlotte said, "Jackie, whatever you do in Japan, do not eat the raw fish." Charlotte, what does she have to say about it? Well, she listens to the news every night and she reads, impressive. Our next expert witness, Charlotte, is a retired farm wife and part-time bookkeeper from Beaufonkville in Outback, Washington State. She has never been to Asia, probably never been to Canada. Has she ever cooked fresh fish? Certainly has never eaten sushi, but she will be the expert opinion here, 14 hours away on the other side of the planet. I mocked her with the glee of a liberal college brat, high on her own cleverness. Mom pursed her lips into a raspberry, letting out a slow, mocking and wagging her head in stubborn annoyance at my insinuation. Now, I taught you better. You know it's not nice to say bad things about people from our hometown. I registered annoyance at this cultural and culinary ignorance, and at the ignorance of Americans and bookkeepers in general, leading me to declare, 120 million Japanese people can't be wrong, Mom, enjoying drawing out the spontaneous rhyme of the last words to accentuate my disapproval. She replied with a three raspberry volley. I rolled my eyes and gave her a side tuck. Very mature, mother. Very mature, mother, she returned in her mocking nasal voice. As much as I enjoy your Edith Ann impression, not gonna. Thumb in her mouth, she shook her head in a wide, slow no. Please, it's their specialty, I pled, rolling my eyes back until they tingled and my forehead got dizzy. I can't do it. It's not how Americans do it. It's not healthy. When in Rome, mother, I took another bite and then grabbed a fresh piece in my chopsticks, offering it towards her. Just try some, would you? Well, when we are in Rome, I'll eat whatever they serve, but here, no, I can't chew this rubbery stuff. She mock choked as she spit out the fish. Luckily, they had also served us 2 large cold bottles of Kirin beer. We refilled the tiny juice-sized drinking glasses and emptied them. And again, she no longer had an appetite to eat. Perhaps the stress of travel was finally taking hold, and so instead, she got drunk. I did too, because no one should have to drink alone. And certainly, especially not if they intend to get drunk. That was a first for me, not getting drunk. That had happened definitely a lot since college. But this was the first time with my mom. She was a teetotaler. But we had a big problem here, and my command of the language was as loose as a bowl of steaming hot ramen. If only they'd had some on hand. After some time passed, the servers having left us in the room with the big fish, who my mother named Skippy, they returned to their great concern to see the beer bottles emptied, but only a few bites of the main course eaten. I somehow managed to explain to the servers that we were not eating this masterpiece of a Sebring, carved expertly into bite-sized pieces by the chef and served as though still in one whole fish. I attempted to explain my mother's redneck problem. She had unfortunately been misinformed. My handy and well-worn two-way G-show was referenced both ways. Together, the staff and I pieced it together, flipping between one page in the dictionary to the next, pointing to the words required, and then, without a sound, the servers vanished, promising to return with something else for my okasan, my real one, to eat. Something cooked, we hoped.
Very nice. Thank you. Okay, sorry. Oh, so there were nice reactions in the chat that I wouldn't want you to miss. Anybody have something they'd like to say to Nancy? It sounded like it was great. Something cooked, we hoped. Yes, that was a good line, good delivery. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great reading.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right.
Getting drunk with your mother. Wow.
Yeah, that's a new one.
Mm. You know it's desperate when. Next, we are hearing from Susie Schatz. She loved a good lobster roll is her segment. And Susie says she was raised in Brooklyn during the 1960s. A grade school teacher helped her publish a poem in Red Book magazine, but she never buckled down to take herself seriously. After college, she lived and worked in Cambridge, Mass, and then in New York City, working long hours in the entertainment industry. In LA, I began ghostwriting script coverage for top talents and then international distribution and production companies before going freelance. Then I taught young people for a decade. I found myself enrolled at UCLA Extension's Writers Program Nonfiction Department. I wish to finish my memoir and personal essays and read them for publication. That's where 100 Writing Days of Summer enters the scene. And indeed, you have been very engaged and productive. So I'm glad to hear you're coming, being productive or getting it done. Okay, so we're going to hear from Susie. She's going to read She Loved a Good Lobster Roll, which is a fabulous title. I'm going to mute everybody and then you'll unmute your.
It is September 2015, and there's a small gathering in Maine to celebrate my parents' 60th anniversary. I've left Rick at home for this one since he's never met my siblings. After a seafood feast in Cape Porpoise, we unanimously head towards Ogunquit and hit an old standby, the Lobster Pound, for a dessert of pie and ice cream a la mode. Not one among us feels like turning in right away since it's so delicious for us all to be together in vacation mode. Then we head back and turn in for a full day of major celebrating. We rise early and have breakfast together out at a local place and then head in separate cars to Shore Road to see the cottage where we had spent 16 summers as a family. We park and get out to look at the cottage. It's still there. Perched on the top of a jetty with scraggly bluffs and ocean below, it still takes my breath away. I marvel at how my parents managed to find this spot. And then my younger siblings and I fondly reminisce about how all three of us squeezed into one bedroom back then. We head down the grassy path to Pebble Beach. Both my sister-in-law and brother-in-law are in awe of the physical surroundings. My father has difficulty walking and tells us to go ahead while he ambles along. My mother lags slightly behind also to be close to him, as he has stubbornly left his cane behind. My sister Rachel and I begin collecting rocks, and Debbie joins us. They are just as polished and soft and striped as they were when we were young kids. We head slowly back up the path with the waves of the ocean behind us. There is not much conversation as we are all kind of mesmerized in this dramatically natural setting. As we reach our parked cars, the new owner comes out of the main house. We immediately apologize profusely for trespassing and quickly explain that we knew Jed and Barbara Grover. Jed, the gruffly handsome lobsterman, has passed on, and we learn that Barbara has since retired from the post office. The new owner's expression has warmed into a wry smile. I venture to ask about Linda Costello from New Hampshire, guessing that they still rent the larger house on the property. And sure enough, this Mainer exclaims, "Linda, of course. Boy, she is out there." I answer, "Really? I never found that. But I ended up in Venice Beach for a while." In typical New England humor, he turns to my parents and jokes, "Make sure you don't leave this one behind here." Everybody laughs. He gives us his business card and explains that in the winter season, our little cottage has an Airbnb listing. I am so happy about this and think about how I can return. We get into separate cars and the plan is to head towards the main beach and to Perkins Cove. My father quickly and impulsively makes a sharp left turn onto Shore Road instead of a right. I'm in the back seat with my sister-in-law when all hell breaks loose. My 84-year-old father is at the wheel, and my mother has gone from 0 to 60, and her voice is high-pitched. Debbie squeezes my leg with a look that is like, "What the hell?" Both of our cell phones are going nuts because my brother's sister and William are in the next car wondering why we are not behind them. They have already pulled into the parking lot. We are supposed to be having a lovely lunch at Barnacle Billy's, which is perfectly situated by the breeze from the nearby ocean and has a back path that leads to a scenic walk along the marginal way. Somehow my father has gone rogue and decided to take a route in the opposite direction, probably because of all the artists we once knew that had studios in the neighboring town. My mother has lost her patience and is adamantly insisting that he turn around and stick to the plan. He digs in his heels and keeps driving towards York. Voices increase in an uncomfortable volume and emotions are heated. The winding road by the ocean is beautiful but treacherous. My dad has a heart condition. This is an aberration of his personality. I am breathing deeply and thinking in my head about how to keep this from escalating. My mother shrieks at him, "What is wrong with you? We have a plan. You're ruining everything." I quickly text my sister that it's a long story, but we took a wrong turn and we'll be there shortly. I quietly show it to Debbie. She nods. Finally, I lean forward and gently rest my hand on my father's shoulders as I am seated directly behind him. "Please, Pops, please. Rachel and Jeremy are worried about us. We can drive along Shore Road another time." He looks in his rearview mirror and our R's meet and lock. I've made connection. He sees my concern and somehow manages to acquiesce. There is a deep sadness in his expression. "Okay, too bad, you know. It's a beautiful day for a drive, but if you insist." We turn around and drive back in total silence. Mom is furious. Her body language is a tight knot. As we arrive and get out of the car, my brother and sister look at me for answers. We find a quiet little table and order lobster rolls. I get some ice cubes in a cup. I take one and put it on my mother's neck. She mutters under her breath, "Your father is driving me crazy. He is such a pain in the ass." My father sits on one of the benches while we wait for a table. He is scowling in defeat. His polo shirt is bright orange and preppy, and I notice that there is a gray slate backing on the side of his bench with an epitaph from one of the generous patrons. "She loved a good lobster roll. Marilyn Kamen, 1952 to 1997. My sister comes up to pull me aside and ask, "Was her face all red and was that vein popping out of her neck?" I quietly answer with one word, "Yep." Please, Pops, please. Rachel and
Sorry, I didn't realize.
please, Pops, please. I didn't turn off my phone. Sorry. Rachel and Jeremy are worried about us. Oh, wait a second. Where am I? My sister-in-law and brother-in-law have each managed to score an alcoholic beverage, which they are quietly enjoying. My mother notices and remarks, "Oh, look who's having a cocktail in the middle of the day." My brother mutters that he could also use one, and he and my sister laugh out loud, but we know it would not be a good idea right now. Instead, we get moving and salvage the day by walking along the well-preserved marginal way. Dad is still in a surly mood. He is having trouble walking. I stay behind to chat with him as the others forge on ahead. I want to check in with him as I sense that he is not himself. I tell him that he must apologize to her to smooth things over. She's crazy, you know that. I take it all in and respond that she has a very clear plan and he deliberately provoked her. I feel like I'm doing an intervention with young children. Dad is not butting heads with me the way he does with his son. Reluctantly, he sadly nods in agreement. He tells me to go ahead with the others, as he will sit and wait for everyone to turn around and come back. As everyone circles back, my dad does come around and apologize. My mother accepts his apology grudgingly, but tells him she knows it wasn't his idea. We all jump in to intervene and squash it before it can erupt again. My brother drives them both back to the cottage so they can have a little nap while he whips up the seafood. I stay behind with Debbie, William, and my sister and have drinks and appetizers at a fancy new place that some locals have recommended. It overlooks the waterfront and dunes of the main beach. We keep things light and easy until my brother phones and says, "I'm dying here. Time for dinner. I need helping hands for the rest." We dine on steamers and lobster, all expertly prepared by my brother, and there are fresh salad greens and cake and ice cream for dessert. It's now dark. My parents have finally made their peace with one another, and I catch them in a sweet embrace on the deck in the back. I am reminded again of the story of how they met. That night, my parents' 60th anniversary was magical and bittersweet. My mom, Debbie, and my sister wandered down to the beach late in the evening. Dad and William and my brother Jeremy had turned in. I am pretty sure William and Jeremy snuck a doobie because that's what they do. We women felt like being wild, and we had fun walking past all the bars and the restaurants as they were closing. One wise ass yelled out to us, "Hey, where are you going? Where's the party?" We just giggled and kept on going until we got to that sand, that amazingly soft, squishy sand that gets solid along the waterline and makes walks on the beach such a pleasure. This is what I remembered from the summers of my childhood. We all took off our shoes and walked along the hard sand and dipped our feet into the waves. Then we sauntered back to the cottage. Along the way, my favorite black leather Italian sandal finally breaks and the strap is lost. It's gone. I moan in distress. Mom said, "If you can't find a good Italian cobbler in LA, I will find you one in New York. You can fix it." I wasn't sure this would be an easy fix, but it didn't matter. Everybody was getting along, and truly, that's all that really mattered.
So much gold in that. Really, a lot of good comments in the chat too. You have anybody want to unmute and have a question or a comment for Susie? Really, I enjoyed it immensely.
Oh, I'm so glad you enjoyed it.
Okay. All right. Now, fair warning, now I'm gonna sing the song. So, okay, my book is called Crushing Debt, and it's a game show in which people are supposed to have a bona fide $100,000 debt just to qualify. And then they go through all sorts of horrible challenges to try and redeem their debt. Well, there's a guy who has a boy band and he doesn't have $100,000 in debt. He just wants the fame for his son's song. So this song keeps showing up, even though it's such a disgrace to the show that it got snuck on and that he treated them all. So clearly somebody's on the take. So that's what this. So that's just the song that I stopped and wrote. It only shows up a little bit in the actual thing. So I'm Julia Roberts. This is my group, 100 Writing Days of Summer. Also, you can see over my shoulder the Mighty Writers Club. Many of us are mighty writers, and we do that all year long. We write up to 4 times a week and have coaching and training 2 times a month. So any of you are writers and would like to talk about that, you're more than welcome to give me a holler after this. Okay, I am on the verge of finishing this book. I am on the last rewrite and will plan on putting it out to agents this fall. Wait, I'm falling all over my words because I'm looking for my paper. Okay, so here we go. All right, so think of 3 15-year-old boys, probably very preppy looking. Their father's name is Rocco Milani, so they're not, they're wealthy and entitled and Italian. So here's the song. I'm not cute enough, I'm not smart or tough. You're the one who's got all the right stuff. You're my mystery, you're my source, my chi. I see you with your friends, but you don't see me. I'll get your attention, my star's an ascension. I wanna get famous, be on your TV. I have to get famous so you'll see me. Baby, baby, don't tune me out, be on all your screens with a big shout out. Tried Idol and The Voice, but I wasn't their choice. I couldn't be the bachelor in a fine Rolls Royce. I wasn't the one, not fired or done. I wanted to break Amish, have some English fun. If I can't go viral, my life's gonna spiral. I wanna get famous, be on your TV. I have to get famous so you'll see me. Baby, baby, don't tune me out, be on all your screens with a big shout out. Chasing fame is like catching water. You just get wet, you don't get smarter. Wanting love keeps me underwater. I just can't breathe until I got her. I'm stuck in the humdrum and wishing for stardom. I want to get famous, be on your TV. I have to get famous so you'll see me. Baby, babe, don't tune me out. Be on all your screens with a big shout out. Look for me with your big shout out. Okay. So, like I said, no one else will probably ever hear that too. Anyway, all right, everybody can unmute if they want, and just have whatever commentary you want to have for any of our readers. And we all want to thank you for coming. It really makes just such a difference to our writing journey to know that there's an end goal, an audience, someone to someone to respond to the things we've been writing so hard and so long this summer.
Have you ever written a song before?
No, not at all. I Googled what's a song. It has that little break. Chasing fame is like, that's called the break. Anyway, but I meant for any of our readers, if anybody has a comment or a thought that they my stars in ascension, thank you. I'm so glad to put these together. We do it each summer, and it really has been a wonderful thing for all of us, I think.
I so apologize about that interruption. My refrigerator's getting delivered tomorrow. I'm so
I just was confused by it. I jumped in like it's like clapping between movements in the orchestra. You feel like the stupid.
So, yeah. timing. It was like, of course, Sorry.
Oh,
So
no
I
worries.
didn't read my chat. I don't know.
Oh, okay. We can save the chat. You just go under
Oh.
more and the three dots on the way right, more. Nope, that's not where it is. Oh, the three invite, mute all, that more.
I don't know. My whole when it just sort of my Zoom isn't where it used to be. Like
Okay.
it disappeared except for the people.
I'll make sure I save the chat. I know Dean knows how to. I know I've messed it up in the past. I won't go out of this I won't go out of this view till we save the chat so you guys can read your things if you didn't get a chance to. I know I saw chats coming up. I'm like, ooh, that's hard. You want to read them. Anyway. Okay. Thanks everybody for coming. I think we did okay. We're an hour and 15. I think I said 75 minutes, so not bad. Not bad on those of you who wanted to go a little long. So good on everybody. All right. Yeah, we'll give ourselves a round of applause and say goodbye. Every reality show. Yes, that's because the book's about a reality show. Thank you, Adam.